Welcome back, everyone. Next video in Options Hero. This is video number 3. This is a really important one. They're all important, right? And they're all, again, designed to make you money, but most importantly, really reduce your risk in a big way. This is the biggest part of the reducing of the risk, right? When you get into a trade or an investment, the goal is really to give yourself the best chance of making money. Once you execute the trade, it's out of your hands at that point. You can't like will a stock to go up or down. You can't do that. So you want to give yourself the best chance to be successful. And the way you do that is to only follow liquidity, not volume, but liquidity, right? For those that don't know what liquidity is, you will get a full crash course on it here. Liquidity is the number one most important rule when it comes to investing. Let me repeat that, right? People think about, forward outlook and good stocks and good companies, blah, blah, blah. It's all wrong. It's not true. Liquidity is the single most important part of investing. Period. End of discussion. There is no close second. Without liquidity, the whole thing's over. Without liquidity, you don't set yourself up for success. Without liquidity, you don't get a fair price. Liquidity is the single most important rule when it comes to investing. Here we go. So what is liquidity, right? So liquidity is the level of participation in a financial asset, right? So let's say like the Pokemon Go game, right? For example, its first day had 100 people using it, but its fifth day had 1 million people using it, right? That is way more liquidity in that fifth day than that first day, right? More participation leads to more competition. So in the stock market, the more people that are participating in a certain stock, like Apple, for example, or Google, or Netflix, or Microsoft, right? The more competition there is for either shares or for options contracts, right? And when more people are fighting over these things, when more competition happens, the better prices there are, right? Let me repeat that. The more competition there is, let's call it in a stock, the better the prices are for you and I. The more accurate the prices are, the more fair they are, the quicker you can get in and out. Think about it this way. The more competition there is and the more participation there is in a stock, the better price we're going to get in a shorter amount of time. How could you not sign up for that? Right? So, because of this, let me just read this word for word. You will never, under any circumstances, use illiquid options to either reduce your risk or make you money in stocks, ETFs, futures, Forex, or literally anything else, right? So what we're going to do to show you exactly what it takes to say a stock has liquidity is we're going to go over the 7-step cheat sheet that you're going to be able to download. That's part of the course. We said you were going to give you a cheat sheet. Here we go. This is how you stay away from stocks that are going to lose you money, right? So we're going to give you a 7-step cheat sheet that's going to follow the 7 steps that we're going to go over here that let you know if a stock is liquid enough for you to even bother with. Now again, if a stock fails this cheat sheet or these 7 steps, you're never to think about it ever again. There is absolutely no reason under the sun for you to bother with it because you're never going to trade with it. You're never going to try to make money with it. Remember, liquidity is participation. The more participation, the more competition. The more competition, the better prices you're going to get at a shorter amount of time, right? Again, this is the most important thing when it comes to investing. So, 7-part cheat sheet right here that you're going to be able to print out after this to follow it. This is how you make sure something has liquidity. And if it doesn't, you literally have to run the other way and forget that it even happened. That's how bad illiquid stocks are. So the first thing we're going to look at is stock volume. And to be able to pass this test, we need to see stock volume in the millions. In the millions. So let's get out of here. Let's go to that Thinkorswim platform. Here, let's go to Apple, for example, right? And you can see here pretty clearly right here, Apple has 17.2 million shares traded in a single day. That's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. That is super liquid. Let's look at Netflix. Less liquid, but still passes our test. Remember, we want to see shares in the millions. Netflix traded 6 million shares, right? That's pretty good. Let's look at SPY, which is the S&P 500 Index ETF. Definitely has a lot of liquidity here. 50 million shares. Not bad. So let's look at a stock maybe that is less liquid. And I'm literally just coming up with these on the fly. So Priceline, for example, Priceline, the travel site, while it's a $2,000 stock, it doesn't matter because it hasn't hit a million shares traded in a day. 500,000 shares is not liquid. Priceline should not be on anyone's watch list or anyone's radar because you're going to get absolutely ripped off just to make trades in this, right? So we're going to stay away from this at all costs. Let's find another one. InSeed, right? So this is Insight Corporation. I actually have no idea what the hell they do, and it doesn't matter because they have less than a million shares traded in a day, which means we're going to literally run the other way. We're going to run the other way and never ever think about it, stocks like this. So remember, rule number one when it comes to liquidity is stock volume needs to be in the millions. If you find a stock that you're interested in and there's opportunity in and it does not have volume, stock volume in the millions, you have to move on. You have to move on. Now, if you're fortunate enough to find an opportunity in a stock that does have the proper stock volume, you can move on to step number two. Step number two is the stock bid-ask spread. We must see the stock bid-ask spread less than or equal to 7 cents wide. Now, what the hell does that even mean? Well, let's look at this real quick. And let's go to SPY as our example here. Right? So we see the bid and the ask. The bid is the most amount of money. The most amount of money that anyone is willing to pay for one share of stock at a given time. Right now, it's $47.06. On the other hand, the ask is the least amount of money that anyone is willing to sell one share of stock for. That's the ask. The bid-ask spread is the difference between them. So the way to think about the bid-ask spread, it is the difference between the most someone is willing to buy one share for and the least one person is willing to sell for. Excuse me, I keep tongue twisting myself. That is the bid-ask spread. And remember, we need to see a bid-ask spread for the stock less than or equal to 7 cents wide. Now, the reason for this is because if it's not less than or equal to 7 cents wide, we're going to end up having to pay over fair market value or mid-price to be able to execute a trade. Right, so let's kind of look at the numbers real quick. I'm doing these slides on the fly here. So let's see here. And let's just do some math and bear with me because again, this is totally on the fly. Right? If we look at SPY here, SPY has 1 penny wide. Right? So the most we're going to give up is not even 1 cent. So it's half a cent a share to be able to execute a trade. But let's look at some of those other stocks like Priceline that we just said didn't have the right type of stock volume. Right, the type of stock volume for us to be able to participate in. Remember, we wanted to see it in the millions. Priceline has volume right around 500,000. That is incredibly illiquid, and we're going to move away from it. However, where on SPY we see a 1 penny wide bid-ask spread, on Priceline we see a $25 wide bid-ask spread. Right? Look at this. Big difference here. Big difference here. So let's say we wanted to buy 100 shares of SPY, right? So let's go back to SPY. We wanted to buy 100 shares. And again, this is why the bid-ask spread needs to be 7 cents or less. If you wanted to buy 100 shares right now, we would pay the ask. So $47.07, right? So that's what we pay. And let's say we bought 100 shares. So 100 shares times 0.005, right? So we're going to end up paying about half a penny. Wait, this math is wrong. Hold on. No, wait, that math's not wrong. No, that math is not wrong, right? So 50 cents, right? So if we spend right now 100 shares would be about, let's see, 247.07, right? So 100 shares would cost us 247.07. So it would cost us about 24 grand to execute that trade, and we're going to be giving up just 50 cents for doing that trade, right? That's all we're going to give up. It never, ever, 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 ever gets better than that. Now, we're not going to buy 100 shares of Priceline because we're going to go broke trying to do that, but let's say we're going to try to buy 10 shares of Priceline, right? So 10 shares of Priceline right now, the ask is, we're not going to pay the ask right now. The mid price on this right now, let's see. The mid price between the bid and the ask is plus 2050, whatever that is, divided by 2, right? So the mid price is 2037, right? However, do you think in any stretch of the imagination that you're going to get filled at that mid price of $2,037.50, which is right in the middle? Absolutely not. Best case scenario is you have to pay $5 more than that, right? So in the scenario of SPY, you're giving up 50 cents to be able to make that trade, right? And you're laying out 24 grand for doing so. If we wanted to buy 10 shares, just 10 shares of Priceline, that would cost us, and again, there's no way we're going to be able to pay the mid price, right? So we're going to have to pay about $5 more than that, or $2 grand, $42.50, right? And we want to get 10 shares here. So let's see this. So $2,425, right? Now we gave up $5 a share here. So and times 10. So we gave up $50 just to execute that. So the difference between the same notional value, right around 20, 25 grand, 25 grand worth of SPY, 100 shares, again, all we're giving up is 50 cents to be able to execute that trade. You're never going to get better than that. But on Priceline, we have to give up $50 to buy the same notional value or just 10, right? So think about it. You can either be in a 50-cent disadvantage or a $50 disadvantage right off the bat. Right off the bat. So if SPY doesn't go up or down at all, you don't lose money. However, you're already a $5 loser. Already a $5 loser, or $5 per 100 shares. A $50 loser on the trade before you even do anything. That's why the bid-ask spread has to be so small so that you can't be taking an immediate loss just to execute the trade, right? Now, if the stock volume is in the millions and the stock bid-ask spread is less than or equal to 7 cents, you can go ahead and trade that stock. Done. Nice and easy. You can go ahead and do it. You're not going to get ripped off. You're not going to have to take too much of a loss just to execute the trade, right? But if there's anything that is different, there's anything that is less than a million shares, right? Or the bid-ask spread for stock is more than 7 cents wide, you have to run the other way. In no way, shape, or form should you be taking a $50 loss just to execute a trade. I don't care how awesome the setup is, how amazing you think it is, how much money you think you're going to make. In what world would you actually pay $50 just to execute a trade when you can pay 50 cents? You would never do that, right? So that's done. That's step number 2. Again, if step 1 and step 2 are good, you can go ahead and you can buy and sell stock till your hands bleed. You can go ahead and do that, right? Now we get into some of the fun stuff here. So let's see. Click. Great. Now, The stock must have options to trade. Let me repeat that. You might think this is like the crazy thing ever, but the stock needs to have options, right? We need to have options. The reason we need to have options is because, again, options are the only way to give yourself better than a 50-50 chance of making money. So if you have a stock, and I can't even think of some of these stocks off the top of my head, but if you have a stock that doesn't even have options, your odds of making money will never, ever, ever be greater than 50-50. So let's go ahead and let's find a stock real quick that doesn't have options so I can just show you. All right, so after digging around, I found a stock. It's actually not a stock, it's a mutual fund that does not have any options. So this is the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund. I have no idea what they do. I personally hate Vanguard. I think they suck. They don't ever beat the market. I hate them. Just to let everyone know, this is an example, VTSMX, of a stock mutual fund that does not have options to trade. So this, if you're a shareholder in this Vanguard fund, you will never have better odds than 50-50 on making money, right? So pretty simple. That's why you want to stay away from these, because your odds of success are never going to be more than 50-50. So let's click here, right? And the reason we want to do that is, let me just add this. If you do not have options to trade, can't spell, trade, you will, I can't spell again, or again, look at that, you will never have better than a 50% chance of making money. So that's why it's so important, obviously. You got to have options. As crazy as it sounds, VTSMX doesn't have options. You know, Facebook has options, etc., etc. So step number 3, it must have options. Step number 4, options volume. We must see options volume in the thousands, right? Options historically are used by stockholders to hedge their positions. And if we don't see any stock volume, that kind of tells us that, like, no one cares. Like, no one's really worried about their stock position. No one's trying to hedge or make more money in their stock position. So, like, no one cares. So if we look at Facebook here, again, the Thinkorswim platform, we can go to today's option statistics and we can see options data, from the previous trading day. I'm doing this on Sunday, so this is from Friday. We can see there's 436,000 options contracts traded. This number, without looking at anything else, nothing else matters. This number says, okay, clearly there are a ton of big players and institutions that are trading Facebook stock and own or buy or sell Facebook stock. And they're trying to hedge their positions or improve their positions through these options for Facebook stock. And they're doing it in a big way. There's 430,000 contracts just traded in one day. That's big. This screams liquidity because this screams participation. If we go to this INSEE thing, let me see, I haven't checked this in a while. If we go to this INSEE thing that has, again, less than 1 million shares traded, we see that they only had 300 shares traded in a single day. Let me ask you a question. 400,000 plus options contracts, or 300 options contracts. Which stock do people care about more? Which stock are people participating more in? Where is there more competition in? It's Facebook. No one cares about a stock. Clearly, again, it's not all talk. This is action. By their actions, no one cares at all about INSEE because, again, 300 contracts, that's nothing. I trade more than 300 contracts in a day. So, going back now, step number 4, we must see options volume in the thousands. If we do not see that, we walk away. Sorry, my friend just got engaged. I commented on him on Facebook saying that. Sorry for that coming up. All right, good. Step number 5, options expiration cycle. So, if you are a stock and you offer options, you get out of the box monthly expirations. So that means you will have options contracts that expire every third Friday of every single month. That day, the third Friday of every single month, is known as the monthly expiration cycle. So if you're a stock like let's say you own a company and it IPOs and you trade options, you will get out of the box, the ability to have options trade that expire on the third Friday of every single month, period, rain or shine, no matter what. Over the last decade or so, actually, by the people who created the Thinkorswim platform, which I'm kind of showing you guys a little bit of today, they created weekly and quarterly expiration cycles. Now, think about this for a second. I want to go back to this, what liquidity is. Remember, liquidity is more participation leading to more competition, leading to better prices in faster times. If we go back to, where was I, step 5, expiration cycles, everyone out of the box gets these monthly expiration cycles, but only those where there's enough competition and demand for more expiration cycles get weekly or quarterly expiration cycles. Those just tell us, again, by the actions, not by the words, those tell us that there is so much demand to have more expiration cycles than just the monthly ones, that the options exchanges and the stock are going to offer more expirations. They make money off of doing that if there's certain levels of volume, and it gives people more access and it brings in more liquidity, thus more rebates to them from the exchange. So let's take a look. Let's go to Netflix, NFLX. So what we're looking at here is we see these monthly expiration cycles: August in white, September, October, November, December, January, all the way up to March and June. Those all, in each of the months that are stated, expire on the third Friday at the end of the day in all of those months. So these options, all of these options right here, will expire on the third Friday of August, which is in 19 days. That's August 18th. All these options, again in white, will expire on the 15th of September. I don't need to look at a calendar to know that the 15th of September is the third Friday in September. Right? Same thing with January. I know that the third Friday in this upcoming January in 2018, which is many, many months from now, is the 19th, because that's the monthly expiration. Now, everyone gets those out the bat. Everyone gets those, for free. Everyone gets them out of the box. However, these in yellow, noted as weekly, expire on Fridays of certain weeks, not monthlies. Now, there's a little bit less liquidity and participation in those. However, Netflix would not get these yellow expiration cycles or these weekly expiration cycles if no one gave a shit. Right? If no one cared, they just had the monthly ones and they would go on and all that stuff. Remember, Netflix has 6 million shares. Its bid-ask spreads are much tighter. Much tighter. There's demand by institutions. 100,000 contracts in a day. There's demand by institutions to have these expiration cycles. Let's look at SPY also. SPY is the most liquid product in the world. SPY has all these weeklies, they have quarterlies, they have everything. SPY, the stock bid-ask spread is 1 penny. It traded 50 million shares. On top of that, how many options contracts are traded? 2.2 million. They have weekly, they have monthly, they have quarterly expirations because there's so much freaking demand. People want to participate and compete in SPY so badly that they get everything they want. So that's what it is. Now, if we go back to our, redheaded stepchild here of INSEE, 300 shares, 300 option contracts traded a day, less than a million shares, and we only see the monthly expiration cycles here. We don't see any yellow, right? Remember, SPY, there's yellow ones for weekly. Let's see, Amazon. Loading. There's yellow ones for weekly. Let's see. Does Twitter have them? Twitter has them, right? Twitter has them. There's yellows for weekly. Let's see. Facebook, right? So all these things off the top of your head. Look, Facebook, 25 million shares. Remember, 400,000 options contracts. They're going to have weekly expiration cycles, right? But INSEE, remember INSEE? Insight Corporation, less than a million shares. 300 options contracts traded. That's a sheer sign that there are no institutions that give a shit at all about this stock, thus no one cares. And they only have monthly expiration cycles. So as rule number, step 5? Step 5, we can't just see monthly expiration cycles. If the stock doesn't have also weekly expiration cycles, it's dead to us. We walk away. Step number 6. Like stock bid-ask spread, we must see options bid-ask spreads 7 cents or less wide. So let's just go right to INSEE because that's obviously going to be hot garbage. The way to do this is to go to the strikes that are closest to the at the money price. So if you remember from a previous lesson, at the money are the strike prices that are closest to the current price of the stock. INSEE, Insight is 135 bucks. That means $135 is going to be the at the money strike. So being able to look at the bid ask spread, you look at the at the money options. So here on the put side, we can see the at the money bid ask spread is 90 cents wide. It is 90 cents wide. That is way more than 7 cents. That is absolutely terrible. There is no competition to execute any of those contracts, those $135 puts expiring on the 15th of September, which again is a monthly expiration, the third Friday in September. No one cares. Literally, no one cares. Actually, those are $1.10 wide. My math's terrible. But no one cares. Let me show you an example of people caring. People care tremendously. Let's go to the 247 strike, which is going to be at the money. Right, so the 247 strike, they're 3 cents wide, right? And this is on a Sunday. During the day, they're never wider than a penny, right? But again, they're 3 cents wide. People are competing for these contracts. No one is competing for these INSEE contracts. No one cares. You're going to get ripped off. You're going to get ripped off if you try to participate in these because you're going to have to take an immediate loss, right? So let's say on INSEE, we want to buy 10 contracts, right? And right now the mid price is $7.95. Let's say we can buy them at $8.15 if we're going to be really generous, right? We're going to buy them at, so it's really $7.95 is the mid price, and we're going to be able to buy them at $8.15 if we're really lucky. If we're really lucky, right? And then so that's going to be $815. That's $815 times what we say 10, and what does that equal for us math geniuses? That equals 8150, right? So that's going to equal $8,150, right? Fair market value for those is only 7,950, right? So we have to give up 200 bucks. We are a loser of $200 just to execute the damn trade. And I'm going to read the hell out of that because that is ugly. Let me ask you a question. Would you ever enter a trade knowingly taking a $200 loss because you wanted it so bad? I've been doing this for over a decade. There aren't opportunities that are so damn good that you are got to be willing to give up 200 bucks just to execute them. This is why step 6, we cannot participate in any options where the bid-ask spreads are not 7 cents or less wide. That's step number 6. Step number 7 is open interest count, right? Until options expire, there's something known as open interest, right? There's something known as open interest. Let me clean this up for you just a little bit here. I'm going to clean this up. So we're just looking at open interest. All this other stuff we'll get to in a second, right? And let's go to SPY again. Open interest is the notion that there are outstanding options contracts that have not currently been closed, right? They haven't expired yet either, but they haven't been closed, right? And we want to see open interest count in the thousands. Open interest count in the thousands tells us there are big institutions who are hedging their positions or trying to improve their positions via options of a certain stock, right? If they have all these options contracts there, that we know that there's big owners or sellers or buyers or whatever of stock. And that's something that there's big institutions in there. That goes back to our first idea. Liquidity is participation, right? Liquidity is participation. So we want to go ahead and we want to be in those things that only have a lot of liquidity. And the 7th step is we want to see open interest count or open on options contracts in the thousands around the at the money strike. So if we go to the 247 strike right now, the calls have about 26,000 open interest contracts and the puts have about 24 and a half, right? We see also some big numbers here. The 250 call has 170,000 options contracts open. That's pretty big. The 240 put has 109. The 235 put has 155. This is obviously an example of open interest count in the thousands. Let's go back to our former friend INSEE and let's look at the open interest count, right? So we see 2 strikes in the thousands, but that's it. This is not liquid. And again, the bid-ask spread on these are $1.50 wide. Well, no institution is going to do, no institution in their right mind who manages money from other people is going to take a loss to enter a trade. So no kidding that there's no open interest here, because you're going to have to take an immediate loss to enter the trade. So that's liquidity. I'm going to make another slide here and go over all these again. So let's do this. Liquidity overview. Now checklist. And again, there is a download link below this that you will be able to actually get all that. So let's do it nice and pretty with pretty fonts and pretty spacing and colors and all that. So here are the 7 steps again. And let me just go over them again. So the first step is to making sure that there's liquidity is stock volume in the millions, right? And the reason for that is because we don't want to pay up or take an immediate loss in a stock position to enter the trade. So let's look at an example again. SPY, the bid-ask spread is 1 penny wide. It is not possible to be less than that. This is an example. Excuse me. We're talking about stock volume. I'm sorry. Stock volume, 50 million shares. 50 million shares. This says a lot of participation. Remember, step number 1 is we only want to see options volume in the millions. This is 50 million. People really, really care about this. On the other hand, INSEE, less than a million, only 989,000. While it's close to a million, we want millions. So no one is trading this. No one really cares, right? So that's step number 1, stock volume in the millions. Stock number 2, let's capitalize it. Stock bid-ask spread less than or equal to 7 cents, right? And again, the reason for that is because we don't want to pay up or take an immediate loss to be able to execute a trade, just to be able to get in there. Again, there is no trade, there is no opportunity, there is no setup that is so good that you should be taking an immediate loss just to fill the trade. Never. So again, penny wide here. It's never going to get better than that. But if we look at Priceline, it's $25 wide, right? You're going to have to be a loser off the bat just to execute the trade. I'm telling you, there's no way in this world that an opportunity is that good where it's worth it, right? So if either step 1 or 2 is no good, we have to walk away, right? But if step 1 and 2 are good, we can move on to step number 3, which is must have options. If there aren't any options, write this down. If there are not any options, your odds of making money can never be better than 50%. And you would never bet me on a coin flip. So why would you ever, in any way, shape, or form, buy stock or sell stock where there are no options? Exactly. That's step number 3. If step number 3 is no good, we walk away. However, if step 1, 2, and 3 are good, we're going to move forward to step number 4, which is options volume in the thousands, right? Now again, options volume shows us if there are big institutions who are hedging their positions via options, right? So let's look at some examples of options volume in the thousands. Here we go, SPY. We have SPY, and we have 2.2 million options contracts. That tells me that for sure, 100% without a shadow of a doubt, there are big institutions that are hedging their SPY stock position with SPY options, right? And then if we go to our redhead stepchild, INSEE, there are only 304 contracts traded in a given day. This says, bye-bye, nobody cares, right? So if step 1 is no good, we walk away, we move forward if it is. If step 2 is no good, we walk away. If it's good, we move forward. Step 3 the same, step 4. If the options volume is not in the thousands, we walk away. we absolutely walk away. However, if it's good, we move on to step number 5, which is options expiration cycles. Now again, options expire. Out of the box, every stock that you can trade options on gets monthly expiration cycles like INSEE. However, for the rare few where there is so much competition and so much demand for the exchanges to give options and allow people to trade options on different or outside of the monthly expiration cycles, you get weekly options. So let's look at, like, does Intel have them? Yeah, Intel has them. So people care a lot about Intel. Obviously, look, you could hide. Let's hide this real quick. Can we hide like this? Let's hide this for a second. There. So you can hide this, right? And we can look at stock volume and we can see 36 million shares. And let's see, did this click? No, don't look up there real quick. So we can go like this. We don't even need the name of the stock. It doesn't matter. We can look at stock volume and we can see, okay, the stock volume, 36 million shares traded. People care. Options volume, 180,000. They are definitely 100% guaranteed, without a shadow of a doubt, going to have weekly expiration cycles because there's so much demand for these shares in these contracts. So of course they do. Of course they do. So that's number 5, options expiration cycles, both monthly and weekly. Again, if you do not see weekly expiration cycles and you only see monthlies, you walk away. The 6th part of our checklist here. So options, bid, ask spreads, right? So this is a big one. This is very similar to, very similar again to seeing stock bid ask spreads. But again, if we see something that is more than 7 cents wide, here, even on a Sunday, they're just 5 cents wide, we have to walk away because again, there is never an opportunity that I have ever seen in my entire life, nor have I ever heard of, that is so good that you have to be a loser off the bat, take a loss off the bat just to enter the position. I can't spell it right now. Just to enter the position. Again, so we look at INSEE. $1.10 wide. You're going to have to pay up money and be an immediate loser just to execute the trade. So we're going to stay away from that, right? And the 7th step is options open interest in the thousands. So again, I actually spelled that right. The notion of open interest is how many options contracts are there out there, right? And if there are a lot of options contracts, let's look at Facebook for example. If there are a lot of options contracts out there, we know that a lot of institutions are hedging their stock positions via options. So we can see in Facebook right now, the 150 strike is 16,000. The 180 call has 45,000. The 200 call has 50,000. This says there are big institutions that are shareholders of Facebook that are either hedging or trying to improve their stock position via options, right? And the way they do that is by having a lot of contracts out there. Again, if we look at INSEE, on the other hand, we only see 2 strikes that are in the thousands. That is nothing. Clearly, no institutions are involved here. They really don't care. There isn't a lot of demand for this. So again, here's your checklist. Let's go through it one more time. This is so important. Rule number 1, the stock must have volume in the millions. Rule number 2, the stock bid-ask spread has to be less than or equal to 7 cents. It must have options. The options volume needs to be in the thousands. There need to be not only monthly expiration cycles, but there also need to be weekly expiration cycles. Remember, that shows demand. Options bid-ask spreads have to be less than or equal to 7 cents. Can't type. And the last part is the open interest count at the money strikes should be in the thousands. So this is liquidity, guys. This is the most important thing. If one of these do not pass, you have to walk away and find a different product. You have to do it, because if one of these is no good, you will have to take an immediate loss to enter a position, and we are not in the business of doing that. We're in the business of making money and reducing our risk, not adding risk and losing money. So again, stock volume in the millions, stock bid-ask spread less than or equal to 7 cents, must have options, options volume in 1,000, option expiration cycles, not just monthly but also weekly, options bid-ask spreads less than or equal to 7 cents wide, and open interest count in the thousands. Watch this a million times. I'm telling you, this is the single most important thing when it comes to investing.